Also, at the same time, but I can sit here and say I'm sorry to all of those women. I can also say thank you, because without them and without the Bachelor franchise, I don't know if this would have ever came out.
Former Bachelor Colton Underwood has come out as gay on his Good Morning America interview. Hey guys, welcome back to another shared news from home. We're taking a closer look at Colton's interview, but before we get into it, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. As always, I'm your host, Gabby Gonta, and I'm joined by Gianna Gravelisi today. All right, Colton Underwood was once the Bachelor not long ago, and after a wild season of fence jumping, choosing Cassie, and then the controversy in their relationship that came soon after, Colton has revealed to Robin Roberts on GMA that he is gay. This is big news for Bachelor Nation. Colton has had quite the journey in the franchise, so let's take a closer look at some of these clips because we want to dissect them a little bit more.
Obviously, this year's been a lot for a lot of people, and it's probably made a lot of people look themselves in the mirror and figure out who they are and what they've been running from or what they've been putting off in their lives.
Okay, so he starts right here with a very relatable statement that we've had so much time in this past year to look inward and figure out what we want to change or who we are about our lives and things like that. So why do we think he started with this? Is it to be very relatable going into this really deep conversation? What do you think?
I mean, when I first watched this, I just noticed hesitation right off the bat. There's pauses in his voice, there's shakiness a little bit. He definitely sets this whole reveal up with that relatable statement. And, he's not wrong. Throughout this quarantine, I know I learned a lot about myself. I didn't have any big revelations such as his, but I think he's trying to be relatable to everyone, not just, the gay community. So he's really trying to just set this up with having people maybe understand why now, why not earlier. So I think he's just trying to really make people understand what he's about to say before he actually says it.
Right. That's a really good point. And I think he does have a lot of hesitation in his voice. As you were saying, he probably, when he agreed to do this interview or reached out to them to do it, he probably thought long and hard about exactly what he was going to say, right? So I think slowly getting into it, and now it's in the moment, this is really happening. I'm talking to Robin Roberts right now. Everything probably started to set in, and he was getting a little bit nervous, but he does come out with his big reveal. So let's take a look at that.
And for me, I've ran from myself for a long time. I've hated myself for a long time, and I'm gay.
So there we go. Big breath of relief, it sounds like, right there after he ended up being able to say this on TV. And in this next clip, he does seem very nervous, right? This whole time, that's what we were saying. But Robin noticed that he's actually very happy and, like we said, very relieved here. So let's take a look at this next clip with Robin as well.
Through the nerves, I can see the joy. I can see the relief.
I mean, I'm emotional, but I'm emotional in such a good, happy, positive way. I'm the happiest and healthiest I've ever been in my life.
Okay, so Gianna, I want to know what you think. We saw an immediate switch here, right? He was very nervous, really hesitant, and now he's all smiles and really happy. He does seem very relieved. What do you think about this?
You can definitely see his relief in his face. Again, you can hear it in his voice. He kind of calms down. He loosens up his body language even so. So this, when I was watching this interview, I even tried to imagine it myself. I don't think I'd ever have to go through something like this, but the fact that he's coming out is hard as it is. He's coming out on Good Morning America. He has millions of people watching him. So for him to finally go ahead and say it must just have been this huge, just again, sigh of relief, weight lifted off of his shoulders. And you can see it right here. Look, the clip that it's paused on right now, his face is just so bright looking at Robin. And yeah, I think that this was great for him to do.
I think so too. And I think it was a perfect person to interview him, Robin Roberts, because she is so warm and comforting. She has her own story with being gay and just being in the public eye and things like that. So I think they ended up having a comfort level about them that really probably made the rest of this interview better for Colton. So of course he's very happy here, but he does open up about some of the harder times in his past that got him to this point. Let's take a look at this next clip where he talks about being in a bad place.
I got into a place for me in my personal life that was dark and bad, and I can list a bunch of different things, but they'd all be excuses.
So he talks about being in a dark and bad place. Of course, we can see how this might have come to light with Colton, considering he's been in the news a lot for some controversy. Of course, after coming out of the Bachelor franchise, we've seen a lot of people that deal with emotional struggles and things like that. And he was the Bachelor not too long ago. So what do we think about him just starting to get into his emotional past here?
Yeah, Gabby, as you said, a lot of people coming out of the Bachelor franchise often deal with mental, emotional struggles. And he did, on top of dealing with the mental struggle of him not being out of the closet yet. You know, I can't even imagine, those thoughts that he had of him being gay, but he couldn't, or he felt as if he couldn't come out. So then put him on The Bachelor. Now he's under the limelight. Again, millions of people watching him. So inevitably, he was gonna lash out. Like he says, it's all excuses, but I can see and understand why he did the things that he did. He was battling internally. So, no wonder why he was in such a dark place.
Exactly. And he's going to give an example of that in this next clip, and he gets pretty emotional. So let's take a look.
There was a moment in LA that I woke up and I didn't think I was gonna wake up. I didn't have the intentions of waking up, and I did.
Oof, okay, that is a lot. You can see that he gets even more emotional right there. I think you can almost picture him picturing that terrifying moment. So, but it also seems that he's gotten to the place where he's able to reflect, talk about a situation like that was really hard in his life, and then, tie it into the fact that he's doing this interview now. He's trying to get all of this off of his chest, right? Because being a public figure and everyone watching everything you do and listening to everything you say, when you're going through tough personal times, it's really tough. And sometimes you want to have that freeing experience where you can get something tough like this off your chest. So while he's maybe reliving it a little bit here, it seems like it is also another freeing moment. So what do we think about him, tapping into another example or another reason about why his past was so tough and that it has brought him to this new moment?
Yeah, this again must have been really hard for him to say, really hard for him to go back to that place mentally and think about that moment where he didn't want to wake up. Again, I can't imagine, but it just must have been terrifying for him. Like he was struggling with so much mentally and then outside of The Bachelor. I think it was all of these things kind of combined that led him to that place. And for him to come on and say this after he just said he was gay, like he's unpacking a lot here. And I just give him all the credit for actually speaking about this on such a huge platform, because not only now is he being an advocate for the gay community, but people that have struggled mentally and have had thoughts such as these. So I think that it just shows how much he's grown since we've maybe seen him and watched him on The Bachelor. And he's definitely come out a lot stronger and learned a lot about himself, as he said.
Exactly. You put that so well. Of course, we have to remember that Colton was one of our bachelors, and Robin definitely taps into that part of the interview. She wants to know, what does this all have to do with his Bachelor experience? How did that shape and change him? So we're going to get into that right now.
Do I regret being the Bachelor, and do I regret handling it the way that I did? I do. I do think I could have handled it better. I'll say that.
Okay, so he does have some regrets. I was almost thinking he was going to say no because it brought me to this place, or no because some other reason, but he says he does have a lot of regrets and that it was a really tough time. So what are your thoughts, Gianna?
I'm actually not that surprised that he said he had regrets, only because I believe that him being on the show brought out his mental struggles that he was already dealing with. Again, as we've seen in the Bachelor franchise, people really do struggle on that show. You're secluded, you're on such a huge platform, you may have producers whispering in your ear, you're dealing with 30 plus other people. And it's a hard situation to be in as it is, then throwing on his own struggles on top of it. definitely caused him to act the way that he did. So I do think maybe he looks back at his time on The Bachelor and is ashamed of the person that he was back then. And the fact that he'll go on to say, he kind of put other people through his own issues, I think he definitely feels bad for it. But I do think that that experience helped him learn a lot, which I'm sure we'll see him discuss in a moment.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think it's tough because it sounds like he has been struggling with this thought of him being gay and his identity and all of that for many years. And so when he got the opportunity to be the Bachelor, he was probably like, oh, this is a great chance for me to explore this, and see maybe this is the tipping point to where I'll find my wife and everything will be, the way it's supposed to be, if he was confused in that moment. So I think it makes sense why he ended up going down that path and choosing it, even if he wasn't 100% sure or was still having doubts in his mind. And then, of course, we saw him fall in love with Cassie and everything that came out after that. But yeah, I really understand why he might have wanted to be on The Bachelor and have the opportunity, even if he was still having doubts. So, but like you said, with that came a lot of issues because he was bringing in all these women who were excited to date him, putting their hearts on the line, quitting their jobs for him a lot, which always comes with being the Bachelor. But when you are really not sure about what's going on deep down inside of you, and then you're bringing other people into it, it's a tough situation. So he talks to that point right here.
I just wish I wouldn't have dragged people into my own mess of figuring out who I was. I genuinely mean that.
Okay, so he is definitely sorry for that, all the women who put themselves out there for him and ended up not working out, of course. I'm sure they would come to his support right now and say, it's okay, Colton, like, we support you and we understand your journey and all of that. But for all the women who did stick by him, he is still thankful for the franchise, still thankful for the experience, because it was one of the stepping stones to get him where he is today.
But I also, at the same time, but I can sit here and say I'm sorry to all of those women. I can also say thank you, because without them and without the Bachelor franchise, I don't know if this would have ever came out.
So there was another big sorry apology, but also a thank you to everyone who's been on his journey with him and helped him get to where he is today. But the big question mark is still, what about Cassie? Because she was on his radar, his front runner, his partner that he ended up choosing in the end, and they were together for a good amount of time. Of course, we know they had a very messy breakup after getting together after the show. So Robin brought up the topic of Cassie, and she asked him if he did love her.
Yes. And that only made it harder and more confusing for me.
Okay, so he says he did love her. We know they were together for about a year after the show, and then things started to unravel. It was definitely a messy breakup, but what do you think about, Colton saying that he did love Cassie, but that's what made everything more confusing?
Gabby, I'm not sure if you know this, but in his book, he actually said that him dating Cassie made him realize that he wasn't gay. So I think that he was kind of trapped in this scenario that he was trying to stay true to himself and trying to convince himself that he wasn't gay in a sense, because he grew up in a state where that was a sin, that wasn't right. And that's just the society that he grew up in. So that obviously influenced him kind of rejecting who he was. So when he went on to finally meet the one in a public eye, I think he wanted to keep it as good as possible and be like, okay, there was always rumors about him being gay. He shut them down. And then he had Cassie, which to him was probably an underlying excuse, even though he didn't know it, if that makes any sense. So in other words, I think that he was in an alternate reality mentally with himself because he was trying to run away from his true reality and his true self. So, but I do believe that he loved her. They went through a lot, obviously. Messy breakup. We saw how he lashed out when they were together. And I do think it's true that he did love her, but it definitely was probably one of the bigger stepping stones to his revelation today.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. Everything that you said is so true. And because they always say when you're getting into a relationship, a serious relationship, you kind of want to have yourself figured out first, or just like an overwhelming amount of self-love so that you can then like give more of your love to another person. So it feels like Colton was still struggling with his self-identity, loving himself, and then probably wasn't able to love Cassie in the best way. And maybe she had some of that on her end as well. So it seems like that's maybe what a lot of that was stemming from, since now we're hearing more about his past. And we definitely know that it was a messy breakup with Cassie. She ended up pulling out a restraining order against him after there was some instances of stalking and things like that. So that was definitely a tough time for both of them, and emotionally, relationship wise, and all of that. So he talks a little bit more about Cassie, and Robin asks what he would say to her now. So let's take a look at that.
I would just say that I'm sorry from the bottom of my heart. I'm sorry for any pain and emotional stress I caused. I wish it wouldn't have happened the way it did.
So those are some deep and touching words. He apologizes. What do we think Cassie might think about all of this? I don't know if she's going to come out with a statement anytime soon, or if she's trying to ignore it and move on with her life, maybe happy for him, still has some love for him, or if she's really not trying to be tied to him at all anymore, even though it's tough because of their history with Bachelor Nation and all of that. But what do you think Cassie would have to say or think about all this now?
I think Cassie would have a sense of understanding. I feel like if he didn't come out of the closet and he was just saying, I'm sorry for the past, I'm sorry for all that stuff, she'd be like, no, like, you were crazy. But we see a huge revelation here. Like, this is a huge turning point in his life. And for Cassie, although I don't think she'll ever forgive all the things that he did to her, because it was like a very mentally abusive relationship, and that's hard to recover from. And, it's hard to forgive right away. But for her, I think, again, she's going to understand why he acted in the ways that he did. And she's going to understand why their relationship was very messy in the end, because clearly, again, he was struggling, and this led him to struggle mentally. So when you're dealing with someone that is definitely not in the right state of mind mentally and not doing well in that sense, like, it's just never going to work. So I think that unfortunately, he had to go through rock bottom with Cassie to come out where he is today on the other end. So let's see if Cassie says something. I hope she does, and I hope that she's understanding as possible.
Yeah, I think so too. It's tough because they had a very close relationship for a long time. So maybe she, who knows him a little bit better than even all of us, is saying, oh, well, I knew this was going to happen eventually one day, or maybe she's surprised, or maybe she saw elements of that. So I think she definitely has a different perspective than probably all of us. So I would be very interested to see what she has to say soon here. Another major part of coming out stories is how people's friends and families react, right? So let's hear what Colton has to say about what people are saying right now.
I've had sort of a range of responses, and the most common one was almost like, I wish you would have told me sooner.
So I think this is kind of a common one. I wish you would have told me sooner. He says that is something that a lot of people are saying to him right now. And even members of Bachelor Nation are saying, we aren't surprised, Colton. You should have opened your arms to us. We're welcoming you, the LGBTQ community, Bachelor Nation. So it obviously took him a long time. And as he was saying earlier, 2020 was the year to really dive deep into these thoughts and figure out more about yourself. But do we think it would have been different if he, came to terms with this a little bit sooner, or is this just perfect timing for him?
I really do believe that this is perfect timing for him. Even, in the interview, he mentioned he knew that he was gay since he was 6. He said he always just felt off. He always just felt more emotional. Like, he knew that he wasn't straight, essentially. And again, he grew up in a Midwestern Christian house. So to be gay was a sin. It was wrong. It was horrible. So he even went on to say that he used to pray for God to change him. And he even went on The Bachelor with the intentions for this being God's way of saying, you are straight for sure. This is it. And that's period. That's it. So his intentions were still going into the show. He was still fighting off his true self. So I don't even think it would be possible for him to have come out sooner, you know? I mean, if he did, I still don't think he would have been ready. I understand why people said that to him, but I think that this took time. I mean, he's been struggling with this since childhood. So he needed this year, especially with, you know, the quarantine 2020, nothing else happening, no surrounding circumstances. He needed this to figure himself out. So I don't even think it's possible for him to have came out any earlier than he did.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it's maybe his friends and family pretty much just giving him that extra amount of support. It's saying, you know, not only are you coming out now and we're here to love and support you and accept you, like if you would have done it yesterday, if you would have done it 5-10 years ago, we also would have been loving and supporting of you. So I think that just adds another layer of relief on his end, because of course, always coming out to people that you care about or that you've been through a lot with is one of the most tough parts about something like this. So I really think them saying something like that, even though this was, like you were mentioning, really great timing for Colton, that it just adds another level. I mean, you could see it on his face of just satisfaction in the fact that, okay, like I made the right decision, I'm doing the right thing. You know, whether I would have done it sooner or now, it's happening and I can start to move on a little bit more. But we want to know what's next for Colton, right? What is he looking for in a partner now? Because the world is now open to him. He has this whole brand new path. He certainly looks a lot more relieved at the end of this interview than he did at the beginning. So let's find out what's next for him.
I'll just go on record saying, like, I still haven't had like an emotional connection with a man. I've never allowed myself to, and it's never been sort of in my cards to let myself get there. And I want to more than anything. And I'm looking for someone who can push me and challenge me in all the great ways.
Okay, so he's just starting on his new journey to find love, and he looks pretty excited about it. But does this open a door now, because Colton is a member of Bachelor Nation, a former Bachelor, that we might ever see a gay Bachelor leading the show? I know in Bachelor in Paradise a few years ago, we had Demi, who was actually a contestant on Colton's season. She was gay, and they ended up bringing on one of her past girlfriends to the show to explore that relationship in Paradise, and it ended up working out for a little bit. So this wouldn't be the very first scene or appearance of a gay couple in the Bachelor franchise, but do we think someone like that could lead a show? Is this going to at least start the conversation for that? Or what are your thoughts on all of this, Gianna?
Yeah, Gabby, I'm glad you said that, because I definitely think this does open the door. I mean, this gay bachelor idea has been kind of thrown at the franchise for a couple of years now, especially very recently due to, you know, a call to action for more diversity in casting, switching it up a little bit. So I think that this would be a fabulous idea. I mean, I'm all for it. I don't know if Colton could be the first gay bachelor. You know, he just came out. He's still working on himself. I don't think it would be fair to throw him back into the franchise, nor do I think he'd even want to do that, because it did take such a mental toll on his health. But I really am pushing myself for a gay bachelor. I think it would be different because obviously now we have one man trying to find love with a woman. But when you have one man, for example, trying to find love with another man, that also opens the door to the 30 men maybe being romantically attracted to each other within the group instead of just the one bachelor, obviously, you know, them all being gay. So I think that would definitely cause drama. It would be a different type of drama than we are used to seeing on The Bachelor, but I don't think it's out of the question, and I really hope that we see it in the future.
That is a very good point. It's almost like a Bachelor in Paradise situation, because everyone has their eye open for other people on the show. So maybe that is one of the logistical reasons that this hasn't happened yet. I'm hoping that it does start the conversation, though, and that they can work out some of those issues maybe and just start figuring this out, because now Colton is a member of Bachelor Nation and he's sort of setting the stage, or maybe this would be a great transition point for us to hear something like that. I also agree Colton is probably not ready for this, but we might see someone who is very ready and who could lead the show and just start bringing a lot more of that diversity into Bachelor Nation. All right, you guys, that is everything we have for you in this Colton update from his GMA interview. Of course, we want to know what you think. Let us know down in the comments what you thought of the interview. There were some big bombshell moments. Let us know your thoughts. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. I'm your host, Gabby Gonta. I was joined by Gianna today. You can follow us at our social handles on the screen right now. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.